Hey, so this is part two of some of the healing scriptures, some of the healing things. Now, when I'm going to talk about, I'm trying not to be disrespectful in any way, but I'm just going to share with you some of the conversations that I've had with people dealing with the, if you want to say, the secessionist movement, or dealing with I'll just tell you some things. So I'll give a little background. As you heard in part one, I look at scripture, and when I got saved, I came from a lifestyle where I believed in evolution. I was pretty much an agnostic, if you want to say. I didn't know if there was a God. I had heard about Jesus. I had gone to VBS as a child. I went to church with my grandparents, the ECE, the Easter, Christmas. And we were raised a little bit, but it just never really was. I mean, I was there to have fun. I was the guy that went to youth or went to church to have fun. I was the kid that was there because my parents sent me there to be babysat. So receiving Jesus Christ, so hearing about Jesus, so I didn't. I was there waiting for a snack time. I was there waiting for recess. I was there, honestly, to pick up on the girls. That was if I ever went to church at all. But for the most part, I had no. I've shared in my testimony that, I was the type of person where I had people that were drunk that were witnessing to me, telling me, you need to know Jesus Christ. I'm going, why would I need to know your Jesus? You're just as drunk as I am. You're just as screwed up in your life as I am. And I'm not being disrespectful. This was my mindset. So why would I want to know your Jesus? Because obviously he hasn't fixed your life. And that was a part of my mindset. I had the argument that the Bible was put together by a person to control people. I had the idea that the Bible was nonsense, that we didn't need it today, that it was just some person's crutch. I mean, all those arguments. And so that was my thing until the day that I needed Jesus, until the day that I was looking at committing suicide. And some of you have heard my testimony that I was to the point where I remember at one time I was very unsaved. I was a very angry kid. And I was in my early 20s. And I was pretty abusive. I was a jerk. I was sad. I was depressed. Didn't know it. And I remember one night I was in a relationship, and I remember going outside one night, and I just screamed out, if there's a God, and if this is not the way things are supposed to be, if this is not the relationship I'm supposed to be in, then you need to change it. I was angry, and I looked up to the heavens, and I was just screaming out. Within a matter of a month, I was homeless. She left me. And I was struggling for that next year to try and find a place. I was on the streets. I had a Jeep at the time, and I was living in the back of my Jeep. And then I was living in a storage shed until they caught me. And then I lost my Jeep, and I sold it to get food. I had some food. I would rent an apartment, but I was in a bad place of depression. I lost everything. And then there was a time when I was out sleeping underneath benches, found places in the bushes to sleep, and I slept underneath a loading dock for a little bit, and just, it was a short period of time, but I was homeless. And I remember, I don't know how it happened. Now, you got to understand, I struggled with a PTSD that was, and I can go into it later on, that was somewhat active and acted like narcolepsy. And with narcolepsy, you would drop into this where it was I would go into bouts of depressions, and there was times I would have what we call blackout depressions, where you don't know what's a dream and what's reality because you're so just out of it. Um, Life was really crazy. You were almost in a dream state where you didn't know what was reality and what wasn't. But during this time, um, I can't tell you what happened to all my stuff. All I remember was one night or one day, um, I had a friend, and I asked them if I could use their phone, and I called um, an old phone number that I had of my parents. And in the middle of me being in Fresno with this girlfriend, this fiance, I actually was engaged to her. My parents had moved to Sacramento, and I just had this phone number, and I got a hold of this phone number. I can't remember how, and it was my mother. And so there was some situations in my home life that really were not good before this. And so my family took me back in, and there was stipulations. There were some serious stipulations. One of them was that I needed to get a job, and I needed to get my life straight, and there was a time frame attached to it. And so that was, hold on here, I got someone trying to call me in. Okay, so that was a very interesting time. So I came back to the house, I got a job, um, and I would walk to work. And I'll tell you what, I would go through bouts of depression. But during this time, um, I was crying out, just I'll be honest with you, spiritually getting my butt kicked because of the fact that I was still in and out of depressions. I was doing my best even to keep a job. And then I found out that I had a son. And I was like, my world just continued crumbling because there was no way that I could provide for a son. There was a lot of things. But dealing with that, so I'm living in this mindset. And then I finally, in some of my other testimonies, if you hear my testimony, you'll know I walked down the railroad tracks. I wanted to kill myself, and I found a church, and I found Jesus. I mean, meaning that I walked in the back of the church. What I felt, they preached my life from the pulpit. I gave my heart to Jesus. And some of you would say, well, how does this deal with healing? How does this deal with secessionism? How does this deal with all these? Well, it's the mindset. I'm setting the backstage for the mindset of the fact that the fact that in this whole place, I had basically an agnostic mindset, a scientific agnostic mindset. I loved life science. I loved earth science. I did projects on science. I did projects on space. I did projects on, in high school and things like that. Earth, plate tectonics, volcanic, igneous metamorphic, all these different, I loved earth science. didn't really get much into biology and things of that, but I was into that stuff. So when I heard this guy telling my story, he basically, through prophetic unction, shared things that only God knew about my life. And it got my attention, and I gave my heart to Jesus. And I actually, when I went forward, I was thinking, I'm just going to go forward to talk to someone. Because they're like, if you want to know Jesus or you just need to talk to someone, come forward. Well, that's where he hooked me, because I just wanted to go forward and talk to someone. Well, I need to talk to someone because I'm going to die. I tried to kill myself here, so, blah, blah, blah. I need to talk to someone. So here's where I was when I got saved. The guy took me in the back. He started talking to me about Jesus, and he said, do you want to know Jesus? I said, no, I'm here just to pray. I don't need to know your Jesus Christ. I just need to talk to someone. And so he goes, okay, tell me. And so I shared with him, and he goes, it sounds like you've been the guy that's been there, that you've been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. And I'm going, yeah. He said, so when you, and this guy hooked me in, because he said, so when you smoked up, did you inhale? And I'll tell you what, this is before the Bill Clinton era, okay? Some of you all understand that. And I said, well, yeah. He goes, when you drank, did you swallow? I said, yeah. And he goes, when you had intimacy, did you go all the way? I said, yeah, dude. Why, he goes, you seem to be the type of guy that people can say, I dare you. And you're the type of guy that's a 100%er. I said, yep, it was me. That's a part of why my body is as broken as it was. So I was dumb. I was young and dumb, okay? And so you got to understand, in my life, I've survived 21 car accidents, 2 armed robberies, and fallen through the ice at the age of 8. So arthritis. I've had my shoulders through car accidents tore up. Now, some of the times when I was younger, it was because of me being stupid. But there's a lot of times that I was riding with other people that were being stupid. And then there's just some honest accidents. Had my pelvis compound fracture. My elbow, my pelvis. My elbow compound fractured, my pelvis compound fractured. I've had my knee, both of my knees hyperextended, and then ankles rolled. I've had some things that have been, so some brokenness in my body. So when he sat down and we talked, he goes, I want to challenge you. And you know what, guys? When it comes to discipleship, this is the type of nitty-gritty discipleship that I believe in. Is finding someone when they get saved, is sitting down with a cup of coffee or soda or a sandwich or whatever. And this guy said, I want to give you something to read. And said, okay. He goes, I want you to read the book of John. We're going to start in John. And now this is a part of my secessionist, my story of my belief system, how it developed. And so I didn't even know where John was. He had to get me a Bible and show me and tab the pages of what I was supposed to read, because he said, I want you to read John 1 through 3. And I'm going, what? So he showed me in the beginning what the Bible looked like. He showed me that this is the book of John. This is this. You know what? He gave me a Bible that actually in the front of the Bible told me how the Bible was put together, as far as how these books were structured, the wisdom books, the Pentateuch, all this different stuff was in the front there. He said, if you want to read it just to find out, because I know you say that it was written by man and this and that, because I told him that. And he said, so read the history of the book. So I'm like, okay. So I read this section of John and I started reading a little bit of the opening about how the Bible was put together. And I'm going, wow. So it was blowing my mind as to this whole thing. So reading John, and I'm reading about, for God so loved the world that he sent his one and only begotten Son. So I'm supposed to read this section and I'm supposed to come to him and ask questions. So we got together, we had coffee. And so when we had coffee that next week, because see, I worked graveyard shifts, so I would come down by the church. I would walk at least 5 miles a day just to get back and forth from work, 5 miles one direction. No, this is not those stories of when I was an old time when I was a kid. No, this was, I literally lived in one town and walked to another town because I had no car. It was a part of my process of conditions of living at the house where I was at. Okay. And so we would talk about, he would ask me, so when you read what you read, what are all the questions? I'd highlight in my Bible all the things that, what's this mean? What's that mean? I don't understand this. What is this? What is this? And so we would actually, he'd go through it with me. And he'd have specific questions that he'd ask me about. And he'd walk me through faith, understanding what salvation is, what it means to be saved. And so when I would listen to songs, so we'd actually have, so when I'd come into church the next Sunday, and he said, I'll tell you what, you give me, I dare you, you give me 4 weeks of trying Christianity. If it doesn't work, here's the thing. You came to church, you had breakfast with me, you had coffee with me and lunch with me once a week, and we talked about this thing called the Bible. And if it doesn't work for you, after 4 weeks, I'll rip up I will stop talking to you, I'll leave you alone, but just try it. And so I said, okay. He goes, what's the worst? You lost 2 hours, 3 hours maybe of your week, and you got to learn a little bit more about what we believe. He goes, and you got a free breakfast and a free lunch out of it. I'm going, I could do that. 2 free meals a week. So he told me on Sunday, when you listen to the songs, I want you to not just sing these songs. I know you're a musician. I've been a drummer for years. So he said, I know you're a musician, so I want you to look at the words and think about what they're saying. And so I'm listening to these words, and I'm like, my Redeemer lives, and I'm going, I don't understand, and I'm listening to these songs, and there's just something that's happening though in my heart. I don't know why, but man, when worship would happen, I would just start to cry. And when Amazing Grace, when they sung that song, and I was in the book of John, and he was taking me through the 10 Commandments, realizing that I was a creep, that I was a womanizer, that I was a fornicator, that I was an abuser, that I was a father that abandoned his son. I didn't know about my son. I didn't know, but then when I found out that I had a son, I'm like going, I can't take care of this kid. I don't know but when he talked to me about that, I deserved hell. But by accepting the blood of Jesus Christ, by accepting what Jesus Christ did on the cross, that I was going to gain heaven. That was a powerful thing. I just wept when I was like going, I don't deserve anything. Because I knew who I was. but yet to understand. Hold on for a minute. But yet, to realize that Jesus took my punishment, what I deserved, and that I deserved, from my sin alone, that I deserved hell. It rocked my world. And when that Sunday, to hear the song Amazing Grace, it changed. I mean, I've heard Amazing Grace before, but when that line hit, knowing that I walked into this church homeless, that I was a wretch, knowing what the word wretch meant, and realizing that I had been on the streets, and looking at the fact that, knowing that I deserved hell, that I was a wretched man, and Jesus saved a wretch like me. And I remember looking back at that back door, looking at where I was sitting, and then realizing, and then the next whole section, he saved a lost like me. I mean, I lost it. People, I was just losing it. And we would say the Spirit of God fell on me, and there was so much just thankfulness. Of just that God saved me, that I deserved hell. But yet, God loved me enough to put me in a place where I walked 5 miles on the side of railroad tracks, just getting my butt kicked by the enemy in my mindset. And all of a sudden, I'm here. I've accepted Jesus. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And oh, man. And to realize what was, and then to continue the process of healing. Now, there's a lot more crazy stuff that happened in this whole venue, but man, that was the first point of really rocking. And this church had a cross on the back wall. And so I'm looking at this, and I'm actually looking at the cross and what Jesus did. So it was crazy. Hey, I'm going to walk away from the kitchen because I've got this little kitten in the garage, and she's just she's wanting attention upon attention, and so. But you know what? I got to tell you, that whole. I think I'm going to pause there. This is going to be part 2 because I'm already at 25 minutes, and I want to continue to break this journey down because I really want to walk through this process with you guys and help you guys understand why and what this belief system is, and just to live it out and show you what God has done and who He is in my life, but also to challenge you to live. Think about the song Amazing Grace. I mean, just think about it, and think about what Jesus did and who you are now, and what God has done in your life. You know, become 100%er, man. Where you're like, I'm all in, because that's where I was. And I'll tell you when and why. But that's part 2 of this greater conversation of cessationism and the gifts of the Spirit and healing, because it's all tied together. And you're going to realize, and I'm gonna probably try and dig a little bit more into this here in the next teaching. All right. God bless. Have a good day.